All right, friends, so the Steelers just dropped their first depth chart of the season, and normally that's not a huge deal, right? It's just a list. But when I actually went through this thing, a few of the names on there don't match up with what I've actually been seeing out at St. Vincent during practices the last 2 weeks, because the order they've got listed might actually tell us something else about how this coaching staff is planning to split that room up this year. So stick around because I'm going through this thing position by position, telling you what matches camp, what doesn't, and which names on here should have you either fired up or a little concerned depending who you're rooting for. Hello Steelers fans, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Okay, so let's start right where I left it off, because the first thing you got to understand here is that this is technically an unofficial depth chart, right? This ain't coming stamped from Mike McCarthy himself sitting there approving every single name. And I say that because honestly, when you actually compare it to what's been happening out there in pads, a good chunk of it just doesn't line up. So before I get into the actual names, just keep that in the back of your mind. This thing is a snapshot, not gospel, and I wouldn't be shocked if half of it looks different by the next one they put out. All right, so let's start in the backfield, because this one I actually think matters. Jaylen Warren is listed as the RB1 over Rico Dowdle, and honestly, that's exactly where I think he should be right now given the versatility he's got. I mean, the guy showed last year he can handle early down work when they need him to, but I still think as the season rolls on, you're going to see him lean more into that third down role, catching passes out the backfield, protecting the quarterback, that kind of thing. And Rico Dowdle is going to pick up a lot of that early down, grinded out work as the RB2, kind of splitting the load in a way that actually makes sense for both of their skill sets. So, funny enough, there was a report going around from Mark Kaboly saying Rico Dowdle was getting like 70% of the first team reps. And I mean, this depth chart is telling a completely different story, so make of that what you will. Then behind those two, you got Kaleb Johnson at RB3. And honestly, I think we're going to see a lot of him this preseason. Think about it. You're not going to want to expose Jaylen Warren or Rico Dowdle to a ton of hits in these exhibition games. So that opens the door for Kaleb Johnson to get a bunch of run behind different looks, different schemes, and really show what he's got. If he balls out, great, but if not, I mean, he might be sitting on a little bit of a hot seat by the time the preseason wraps up. Now here's the one that actually caught me off guard. Lew Nichols listed as the RB4, ahead of both Travis Homer and Eli Heidenreich. That's interesting to me because look, Travis Homer has been talked about as a near lock for this roster for a while now, just because of what he brings on special teams. And Eli Heidenreich, I mean, he's a fan favorite for a reason, real versatile piece coming out of Navy. So for Lew Nichols to be sitting ahead of both those guys right now, after he was a practice squad guy last year who didn't even make the 53, that tells me he's been putting in real work these last couple weeks. Maybe he ends up being a legit dark horse to make this roster, or at worst, lock down that practice squad spot again. All right, let's move up to the offensive line, because this is where things get a little murkier. Spencer Anderson is listed as the starting right guard, and honestly, that's not shocking at all if you've been watching camp, because he's been getting the bulk of those first-team reps at that spot. Brock Hoffman has gotten some run in there too, but for the most part, it's been Spencer Anderson's job to lose right now. And then at right tackle, you got Dylan Cook listed as the starter, which, again, not a surprise. The guy played really well down the stretch last season at left tackle, and he's actually played some right tackle earlier in his career too, so it's not like he's totally new to the spot. I keep calling him a floor raiser, because that's exactly what he is. You know what you're getting with him. It might not be flashy, but it's solid. But here's the thing. You also got Brock Hoffman, who had a really strong start to camp once the pads came on, and then you got Iheanachor, who's been playing well too, kind of the ceiling in the future at that tackle spot. So if Dylan Cook and Spencer Anderson want to hold on to these starting jobs heading into the season, they got to keep proving it, because these other guys are breathing down their necks, and I don't think either of those battles are actually settled just because of what's on this depth chart. Preseason reps are going to matter a lot here. All right, now let's get over to the defensive side, because this is honestly where the depth chart gets the weirdest. Yahya Black is listed as the starting nose tackle over Sebastian Joseph-Day, who was one of the bigger free agent additions this offseason. And look, on paper, that's a little bit of a surprise, but here's where it really doesn't add up. Neither Sebastian Joseph-Day nor Esezi Otomoe, who's listed as the third nose tackle, have actually been lining up at nose tackle through the first 2 weeks of camp. They've been working at defensive tackle and defensive end in that 3-4 look. Kyler Bow is listed as the fourth nose tackle on there too. And then you got Gabriel Rubio, who has literally only been playing nose tackle in practice, and he's not even listed there. He's listed as a defensive end instead. So, I mean, that right there tells you this thing probably isn't coming straight from the coaching staff. It's more like somebody filled this out based on old information or whatever roster designations these guys came in with.
Now, one I actually am kind of hoping is accurate, Keeanu Benton listed as a defensive tackle instead of a nose tackle. Because look, I've been saying this for a while now. The guy is not built to hold up against double teams at the point of attack. That's just not his game. What he's good at is shooting the gap and getting after the quarterback or the running back quick. So if this listing actually does mean a real change in his role this year, moving him around instead of just parking him at nose, I think that's a good thing for this defense. If it turns out to just be another depth chart mistake and he's back at nose full time, I'll be honestly a little disappointed because I do think that hurts the run defense. Then over at inside linebacker, you got Carson Bruener listed ahead of Malik Harrison, and that one's interesting too. Malik Harrison was a rotational starter in that room last season, and Carson Bruener was strictly a special teams rookie out of Washington. Right now, the first team's got Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, then Cole Holcomb's been rotating in with those first-team reps, and he's listed second team alongside Carson Bruener. Malik Harrison's down on the third team next to Jacoby Windman. And honestly, that's not a great sign for him, especially with how much this team wants to play dime this year. If they feel like guys like Jaquan Brisker and Jalen Ramsey can handle that moneybacker role, they might not need to keep 5 or 6 linebackers on the roster. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if Malik Harrison ends up being one of those surprise cut candidates once we get to the end of preseason.
Now, real quick before I wrap up, let's touch on special teams because the returner situation was revealed here too. Kaden Wetjen is your kick returner paired up with Jaylen Warren. And honestly, that's not surprising at all. The guy was the best kick returner in the country the last 2 years coming out of Iowa. So it makes total sense they want to get him in that role early. And then he's also listed as the first-team punt returner, which again, that's exactly the kind of impact play they drafted him for. So look, when you step back and look at the whole thing, the biggest surprises for me are honestly Yahya Black at nose tackle over Sebastian Joseph-Day and Lew Nichols sneaking ahead of 2 guys that a lot of people already penciled in for the roster. Those 2 things right there tell me this camp battle is way more alive than folks realize. So that's basically my full breakdown of this first depth chart, and honestly, I wouldn't take any of it as final. This is just a starting point, and I fully expect it to look different in a couple weeks. Let me know down in the comments which one of these surprised you the most, and if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button so you don't miss the next one.